This is SBR's Football Betting Daily.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to SBR Sports Picks. My name is Peter Loshak. This is the pre-snap read show that we do every Wednesday at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, where we talk with Ian Cameron, Joe Gavassi, and Al McMorty. Just a murderer's row of experienced, successful football handicappers. And we just take a look at a bunch of games in NFL and college football, break them down, and we do give picks, and we are religious, again, as regular viewers of the show know, about cracking the picks, seeing how everyone does. Ian Cameron, not bad last week. You went 4-3, flubbed the Navy game, well, 2 losses on that one. Other than that, 4 out of your other 5 picks were dead on. You are now 17-11 ATS in this show. That is a great record, 61%. Joe Gavassi, you had a little bit of an off week. You're 6-8 overall, but again, nothing to apologize for. Joe Gavassi, you have proven yourself long term. And Al McMorty also had a down week. He is 10-7 overall against the spread in this show. But overall, that is a great record. Ian Cameron, you're in the lead now of the 3 handicappers. Nice job last week. And again, you're pretty much killing it, except for a few CFL plays here and there, a few plays where you're going head-to-head against Al McMorty. But unless you're going head-to-head against Al McMorty or taking a CFL play, you're killing it, Ian Cameron.
It's exactly right. Everything else has been everything else we've touched has turned to gold. But yeah, Joe and I were commiserating before we came on the air about that SMU Navy game and just how unfortunate that was. But other than that, yeah, another solid week. See if we can deliver another one today.
Right, they went for 2, and as we know, these are very small sample size. Of course, there's a ton of variance in football, as we know, especially the NFL, but in college as well. And these are small sample sizes, and I think people can tell just from your breakdowns, how much you guys really know about all these betting advantages that we are looking for here. All right, Joe Gavassi, we're going to start with you. You ready to go, Joe?
We're ready to go this week. We're at 43%. Have we bottomed out, or is there even lower to go?
Joe Gavassi, no. Joe Gavassi, you have been giving us killer picks for a long time in these videos, and it's a tiny sample size. We're going to start with West Virginia and Texas Tech. That's the first game that you're going to cover here. And, of course, West Virginia, second game off a bye. They blasted Kansas State last week. I thought West Virginia was a good bet last week, and I did bet them. A lot of people in Loshak in the Bag Show comment section also like West Virginia. West Virginia, obviously, a very, very formidable team, but Texas Tech blasted Oklahoma State. Texas Tech looking like a very, very good version of Texas Tech this year, and, they are a home dog. If Texas Tech was a 4.5-point favorite here, I'd probably be on West Virginia. But West Virginia being the favorite, I don't really want to bet against West Virginia here, but I'm not sure Texas Tech should be a home dog here. What's your take on this one, Joe Gavassi?
My take on this one is let's go back to the start of the season when the King was on the hot throne. Head coach Kingsbury, I'm talking about, and it only got hotter after that first week when they dropped a 47-27 decision to Ole Miss. Since that time, though, they have been outstanding, including a 63-49 win over Houston, and then last week's absolute shocker, a 41-17 win at Oak State, in which they outgained the Cowboys 621 to 336. Well, that sets up one of my favorite situations in all of college football. We call it the blind hog. And every once in a while, the blind hog finds an acorn. That's exactly what has happened with Texas Tech, as any inferior priced college football home team coming off a straight up road dog win as 10 or more is a dead fade the following week. Speaking of which, why is West Virginia a favorite?
I don't know.
Texas Tech has been killing the line. They're plus 57 AFP. West Virginia only plus 19 AFP. And yet the line maker believes that West Virginia is the superior team in this one. I agree with them for one key reason. West Virginia, even though not playing the strength of schedule as Texas Tech, still has the far superior defense. In a game where there should be plenty of offensive fireworks, we'll side against the blind hog and with the West Virginia defense allowing only 12 points a game compared to a Texas Tech defense allowing 28 points a game. Make it West Virginia against our blind hog, Texas Tech.
Wow. All right. Well, this line, there has been some action coming in on Texas Tech. It opened at about 4.5 or 4. It's now down to 3.5 and still headed further down. So we can give you a West Virginia minus 3.5, currently at minus 102 at Pinnacle. Ian Cameron, I know in the Low Shack in the Bag show, a bunch of guys are saying that they like Texas Tech here for the outright win. I don't know exactly what I think about this one. I'm very impressed with West Virginia so far. I know they don't have a lot of depth in terms of their elite talent. So if they start to get hit by the injury bug later on this year, I'm probably going to be looking to fade them. But as of right now, not a team I want to step in front of. A very high total here. Early money's come in on Texas Tech. Ian Cameron, do you agree with Joe, or is this going to be a pass for you?
I'm actually going to go ahead here with West Virginia here in this football game. I'm going to agree completely with Joe. I talked about this on the Roundtable show earlier. That's the way I'd go in this game, especially now that you can get 3.5. And the reason for that is I'm not trusting Texas Tech off a big road win at Oklahoma State. Keep in mind, Oklahoma State was off a huge win against Boise, maybe a little letdown factor last week. Give Texas Tech credit. I don't know where that defensive performance came from, but they bottled up Taylor Cornelius. Not going to be as easy this week against Will Grier, a terrific quarterback, great passing game, great rushing attack. Texas Tech, after big wins, I'm talking about not just wins, I'm talking about big wins against good teams in the Big 12. Rarely in the Cliff Kingsbury area have I seen them follow it up with another strong performance the following week. And until I see that, I'm inclined to go against them. So sign me up here. West Virginia official, minus 3.5.
All right, both Joe Gavazzi and Ian Cameron going on West Virginia minus 3.5, minus 102. I'll be interested to see where this line closes if money comes back on the other way on West Virginia. I wouldn't be surprised if that actually does happen, and we might be getting the best of the line here. West Virginia minus 3.5, minus 102. All right, let's move on now. Mississippi LSU. This is an interesting game. I might have personally made a mistake here. I bet Mississippi on the opener at plus 13.5. Then in the Low Shack in the Bag show, it wasn't available anymore. I gave it as an official pick at 12.5. Now, though, I'm starting to think I might have made a little bit of a mistake, and I might take it back and take LSU now that the line has gone down a bit. LSU, of course, is playing well, right? 2 weeks ago, they beat Auburn outright. And Ole Miss, it's hard to get a read on, right? They do have great receivers, maybe the best set of receivers in the SEC, blown out by Alabama 2 games ago. I think we can, give them a little bit of a mulligan for that, I think. And, I was just thinking that this was going to be a relatively competitive game. On the other hand, though, LSU has historically done well against the spread against Ole Miss, and it seems like it's just a matter of strength against strength here. LSU's awesome, secondary against Ole Miss's awesome passing game. At first, I thought Mississippi getting double digits was a good play. The market so far has agreed with me, but I wouldn't be surprised if this does actually wind up closing at minus 14 for LSU, and I'm starting to doubt my initial read on this one. Joe Gavazzi, what do you like here?
Well, SBR has asked me to pick a tough one here,
Yeah.
as I certainly agree with you, Peter. Ole Miss is all across the board. Consider the 47-27 win against what we know now to be a pretty good Texas Tech team, followed up by, only a 62-7 loss to Alabama. Of course, that may be an outlier, as Alabama clearly superior to almost everyone else in the country. They came back from that with a 38-17 sandwich victory against Kent, in which they put up 651 yards. Quarterback Teamu and his great wide receivers are certainly capable of putting points on the board. Do you know that Ole Miss is 10-1 against the spread as a dog of 3 or more after they score 35 points? And that is clearly the situation. That is clearly the situation in this spot here today. However, LSU counters that technical trend with the fact that the Bayou Bengals under Ed Orgeron, a coach many people left for dead long ago, have now covered 8 consecutive games in conference play the last 1+ years. And that includes our upset that we had on this show with LSU over Auburn 2 weeks ago. Last week, they obeyed my command and did not cover against La Tech in what was eventually a sandwich spot for them. Looking forward to play this Ole Miss team. I simply think the fact that this is a bit too high a number between this team and an Ole Miss team that certainly has the offensive ability, at least, to stay comfortably within this number. I'm going to go ahead and take Ole Miss plus the points in this spot and hold my breath.
All right. Well, it is headed down. Pinnacle seems to be leading the pack. They're already at plus 11.5, minus 115. The best line we could give right now would be, I guess, 11.5 minus 110 or 12 minus 125. Which would you prefer, Joe Gavazzi? If you had to take 12 minus 125 or an 11.5 minus 110, what would you take?
I'll take the plus 12.
Okay. Mississippi plus 12 minus 125. Yeah, this is a tough one. Historically, of course, LSU, for all their mediocrity on offense in years past, have still generally covered against Ole Miss. I think they've covered 12 out of their last 16 games against Ole Miss. I'm not 100% convinced that LSU has a reliable enough offense to be a double-digit favorite in this spot. Again, I'm glad that I got a good line when I bet it and gave it as a pick. I'm really not sure what I think now. Ian Cameron, what do you think?
It's a lean for Ole Miss to me, but it's not going to be an official play for me.
Okay.
LSU does need to atone for the Auburn game. They lost that one, last second field goal, but LSU at 11.5 as a favorite is just not that kind of offense to lay in that kind of price range with me. So I lean Ole Miss, but I do think LSU defensively could get after Ole Miss a bit. Ole Miss has been a little hit or miss offensively with Jordan Ta'amu. So I lean Ole Miss, but it'll just be a lean, not an official play.
Okay, so Joe Gavazzi, again, this was a game that was assigned to you, Joe Gavazzi, right? This was not one that you picked.
That's correct.
Right. So those are tough games. Of course, as we know, most of the time in sports betting, you're looking at a situation, maybe having a lean one way or the other, but passing. But Joe Gavazzi is a trooper. Will take any game that is assigned to him. He's going to take Ole Miss at plus 12 minus 125. Ian Cameron probably very wisely passing. I took Ole Miss earlier in the week, got better lines than now, but I'm just not sure if I'm going to stick with those plays. All right, let's move on to another very interesting game, right? USC against Arizona. And this is a little bit similar to the Mississippi LSU game in that USC has traditionally just had a talent edge over Arizona that has led them to win and cover in recent years. USC, a great game against Washington State. Right, the big ton of talent all over the field for USC. The big question is the true freshman quarterback. First week, he looked fine. Next 2 weeks after that, looked like he had some holes in his game. Last week, though, looked pretty damn good against Washington State. Is he going to be able to do it again here on the road against Arizona? If so, USC as a small favorite is probably worth a shot. That's how I'm leaning right now. Also, there are reports of maybe a slight ankle injury to Khalil Tate for Arizona. If that's the case, if he is actually even slightly hobbled, I think that's a big knock for Arizona as well. Offensively, I'm leaning USC right now, although we have seen earlier how tough it can be for teams to go in on the road as a favorite into Arizona teams and get covers, let alone get even outright wins, let alone covers. Michigan State, of course, already went into Arizona State and lost outright. What do you think here, Joe Gavazzi? USC minus the points?
I don't think that way at all, Peter,
Okay.
and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Even though the Trojans won last week, they failed to cover and were just a missed field goal away from perhaps losing in overtime. And that now drops their record to 4-16 against the spread in their last 20 games. And I'm not sure that's bottomed out yet. The rushing defense is abysmal. They are allowing 180 running yards a game on 5.0 yards per rush. And with a ground game that's averaging over 110 and 3.6. Yes, we're talking about the USC Trojans ground game. They are a clear 150 club play against for me, something we've spoken about in previous weeks. Head coach Sumlin came out of the gate, usually a good starter with the teams he coaches, but they lost to BYU and a quality Houston team, an 0-2 start. After a bit of a buffer against Southern Utah in week 3, they played clearly their best game of the year last week when they outrushed Oregon State 442 to 97 in a convincing 35-14 win. Now, as you mentioned, quarterback Tate has been suffering with an ankle injury all season, actually, and that's why he's not been running the football as much. But up stepped J.J. Taylor, who praised his offensive line when he churned out 284 yards overland by himself. Quarterback Tate may be improving with that ankle injury, and although he's doing it through the air, he may be able to help with his feet as well. Either way, I love the advantage overland in this game, with Arizona now averaging 246 running yards per game and 5.0 yards per rush against a 180 5.0 defense of the Trojans. It is death in the desert for USC this Saturday night as we go with our feline feature of the week, Arizona Wildcats +3, as the Wildcats roar to
The
victory.
hell was that? The hell was that? Was that you, Joe
It's
Gavassi?
the Hall of Fame Joe
Oh my
Gavassi animal
God.
sounds.
Wow. All right.
No, that
well,
was a Wildcat.
I think we know what Joe Gavassi's pick is here. Arizona plus the points. This is another classic example where line shopping is absolutely essential. It's a split line on a key number, 3 or 3.5 market wide. So right now we can give you the Pinnacle line, Arizona plus 3.5, minus 109. That's the current line at Pinnacle. Other places like Bookmaker and Heritage have USC at just -3. Yes, it's true that USC didn't cover last week against Washington State. Washington State's a good program. I just look at that game, and the thing that stands out to me is just an excellent performance from JT Daniels. That's what stands out to me more than any yardage numbers or whether USC covered or not. That's what has me thinking. And I think if Daniels starts to play at an elite level, then you've got a really tough squad in USC. Again, as you said though, this is again he's going on the road here into Arizona, a tough place to play for a true freshman quarterback. Ian Cameron. Interesting matchup here. What's your take on this one?
Tricky game. I don't love either team. USC might be a team that gets going after last week, but we're talking about a USC team that's now laying 3 on the road. They're 0-4 against the spread. They haven't covered a number yet this season. They're 0-2 straight up and against the spread on the road, beaten soundly by Stanford and Texas in their 2 previous road games. I've just got to see USC step up on the road before I can back them. I get a sense in the pit of my stomach, it's like a hunch, that last week's win against Washington State maybe settles everybody down, gives them some confidence going into this game. Lean USC -3, but until I see evidence of their performance improving on the road, can't make it an official play.
All right, yeah, and I was thinking maybe a shot with the over. The last 2 times these teams have met, they've gone into the 70s. Arizona, an explosive rushing offense, and of course, if JT Daniels has a good game, he should be able to put up some yards and points. Go ahead.
Yeah, one thing I want to, if you're interested in the over, and I'm actually kind of looking at the over as well here, keep an eye on the air. See if you can find out and read some things about the offensive line for Arizona, because it's been a disaster. It's been riddled with injuries this season. The left tackle's been out. The right guard's been out for a period of time. They've had mismatched people, different people on that offensive line all season. They haven't had the same offensive line starting in every game for Arizona. So read up on the O-line situation injury-wise for Arizona, and if it looks like they might be starting to get some artillery back, that might make that overplay a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, and if it looks like they're not, that might make the a play on USC as a small road favorite more interesting as well. But Joe Gavassi has definitely spoken and roared. He is liking Arizona split line again, so we'll give him the Pinnacle line, 3.5 minus 109. Now let's move on to another game that's also interesting involving a home underdog here, and that is Florida State at Louisville. Now, Florida State, of course, started off the season looking like a shell of their former selves. They did roll Northern Illinois last week. I was on that one. I thought it was a good spot for Florida State, and they did wind up winning and covering. Louisville got popped by Virginia. The Louisville offense is just looking like it's absolutely stalled out. I guess the big question here, and of course we know that that Florida State defensively has gotten gashed by Louisville over the past few years, so they've got to be coming in here with a chip on their shoulder to have a strong defensive performance against this team. That's still at least partially in their minds. The big question here is what's up with the Louisville offense? Is it likely to improve in any significant way going forward or not? If it is, maybe we take a shot with the over, the very low total. If it's not, take a shot with Florida State minus the points here as a road favorite. Joe Gavassi, what do you think?
Where are you, Lamar Jackson?
Where
Previous
are
2
you?
years under. Well, he's in Baltimore.
Well, we know where he is. Yeah. That was kind of a dumb question. I'm kidding around.
Previous 2 years with
rhetorical.
Jackson at the helm, this team has averaged 41 points a game and 539 yards a game. Now, with whatever various and sundry array of quarterbacks that Petrino has chosen to play, this team is averaging 17 points a game and 284 yards a game. The last 2 weeks against Western Kentucky and UVA, they've been outgained 829 and 440. Bobby Petrino, according to my recollection, is a momentum coach. When things are going good, everything smiles, everybody's happy. When things are going bad, like they are this year, you want no part of Petrino or the Ville. Well, now we come to Florida State. First year on the job for Taggart. His dream job. Work hard to get there. And then he bombs coming out of the gate. You think he's on a honeymoon here this first year? No. And I'm going to tell you why that happened in just one moment. First game out of the box, 24-3 loser to Virginia Tech, although Florida State outgained them. Next major game, they lose 30-7 to Syracuse. What happened there? Well, consider turnovers in both those games. And finally, last week, according to my way of thinking, and I think yours too, Peter, Florida State flashed a buy sign in the victory over Northern Illinois, despite the fact they were -4 net turnovers, and count them against FBS foes this year. They have a now -10 net turnover margin. They came away with a convincing win, 37-19, outgaining Northern Illinois 473 to 221. With Louisville being outrushed 192 to 21, they are one of my 150 club play against teams. And with Florida State outgaining foes 189 to 98, I'm looking for Florida State to be a double rusher in this game, and we know what that means, 75% coverage. Along with the double rush goes the double revenge, along with the buy sign and a fading Louisville team. We'll take Louisville here, minus the points.
All right, this is also a line that has gotten bet up a little bit and is split right now, 6.5 or 6. That's a relatively important number as well. So we can give Joe Gavassi Florida State -6 at -110. Let me put that one in here. Florida State -6, -110. Ian Cameron, I would, at first glance, my first thoughts on this game be agreeing with Joe Gavassi. The big question is, what's up with Louisville's offense? Do we have any reason to believe that it will make any significant improvements in this game or in upcoming games? Because as of right now, you know, they had such an explosive offense for a bunch of years, and now they're one of the worst offenses in all of college football as far as in terms of explosive plays. They just can't generate anything in terms of explosive plays on offense. They're also turning the ball over a lot, which I guess you would expect to even out a little bit, but it's just looking ugly for Louisville on offense right now. Ian Cameron, do we expect an improvement from them in this game?
Yeah, it is looking ugly for their offense. I mean, we're talking about a head coach here in Bobby Petrino. He doesn't know who his quarterback's going to be week to week. He took out Jawan Pass, puts in Malik Cunningham. Things aren't any better last week against Virginia. That offense was, completely shut down. If you watch that game, the Cavaliers were all over Louisville's offense in this game. Florida State, yes, much better against Northern Illinois last week. They're going to have to show it to me, though, one more time. The good news for Florida State, no Lamar Jackson. Obviously, he's the guy that killed them in the last two meetings head-to-head. This, to me, honestly, Pete, this is one of my favorite games on the board because it's the easiest game for me to handicap. Pass. I want no part of Louisville, and I want no part yet until I see something more tangible of laying 6 on the road with Florida State. So for me, I'm leaving it alone. All
right, so then you do think that, because if Louisville comes in here and puts up 3 points again, I don't think they're covering a +6 line, right?
Can you trust DeAndre Francois and this Florida State offense? I mean, that was still a plodding, pedestrian offensive effort and output against Northern Illinois last week at home. I mean, that's definitely got to be a concern. Willie Taggart's offense hasn't gotten it going. Under makes some sense. I mean, if you like the under, makes some sense. But 46 in college football, tough type of price range for me to go under these days in this kind of sport.
It did open at 47. It's gotten bet down a little bit to 46, although there's still some 46.5s available. But I'm sorry, I'm not trying to push you or goad you into a pick here, Ian Cameron. But you don't want any part of the under either.
No, it's a pass all around.
Okay, I'll accept that as an answer. I would have loved it if I had been able to convince
you.
Hey,
when you got 150 games on the board, you don't have to bet each one.
Good point. All right, so Joe Gavassi, not worried about DeAndre Francis, taking Florida State -6, -110. Just quickly, Joe Gavassi, do you have any concerns about the Florida State offense being able to put up enough points here to get a double-digit win here?
I want to get to the Florida State party on time, right when it's happening.
Right.
And I think it starts this week.
All right. Joe Gavassi once again on Florida State -6. Just 4 plays from Joe Gavassi this week. Again, he's taking West Virginia -3.5, -102. Ian Cameron's on that one as well. Tough game, the Ole Miss LSU game that we assigned to him. He didn't pick it because he thought there's big value. We assigned it to him, and he was gracious enough to take it and give a pick on it. And he's going with Ole Miss plus 12 minus 125. He's going with Arizona plus 3.5 minus 109 and Florida State minus 6 minus 110. Joe Gavassi's website again is joegavassisports.com. A ton of great stuff on that website aside from just his picks. Joe Gavassi, just quickly tell us a few things that we can find on your website for people who might want to go and visit.
Well, you absolutely want to read the money management article that's up there. That's been the basis of what I've done for the last 14,000 straight days. You also want to read the articles. From time to time, we mentioned the 150 club here. We mentioned the 50-point AFP deal that we have going here, the middle of the season. A lot of good articles about football up there. As you say, so much more to offer than just the selection service.
Absolutely. I've been there myself. Joe Gavassi from joegavassisports.com. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you again next week.
Good luck this week, Ian. We'll talk to all of you next week. Same
Absolutely.
time, same place.
Okay, now we're
Good
going to
luck,
welcome.
Joe. See ya.
Go ahead. Now we're going to welcome in Al McMorty. Is Al McMorty ready to go? Is he there? No, we need a minute. Okay, we're going to talk right now with Ian Cameron then. Ian Cameron has a couple games that he wants to talk about, Virginia and NC State and Cleveland-Oakland. Ian Cameron, let's start with Cleveland-Oakland because everyone, of course, talking about this game. Baker Mayfield looked friggin' awesome. The Raiders look, vulnerable. Is this a spot where Cleveland is once again going to have some betting value? They've covered every game so far this year. Or is Baker Mayfield maybe in for a little bit of a letdown spot after his awesome performance that was admittedly in a no-lose situation for him? I mean, if he had come in and stunk up the joint, no one would have cared. He comes in and plays great, and now he's the hero. I mean, he looked great, right? He had courage. He was throwing the ball downfield, taking shots downfield, not doing checkdowns or anything like that. So Mayfield looked awesome. The Cleveland defense looks great. Myles Garrett. The question is there a letdown here for Cleveland? Maybe Oakland -3 is a play. What do you like here, Ian Cameron?
Well, every team except the Houston Texans last week that was winless and playing at home covered the number. Arizona covered, Detroit covered, Seattle covered. The only one that didn't was Houston. And I think they've got maybe the worst head coach in the NFL, so maybe that shouldn't be that shocking. Bill O'Brien, a complete imbecile as far as I'm concerned. But
Not the
to
smartest
me,
head coach I've ever seen. That's true.
Exactly. No, exactly. And here's Oakland in this same spot. This is a cornered animal, wounded animal, desperation type of situation here for Oakland. 0-3 at home. Am I going to trust the Cleveland Browns to go on the road and win 2 games in a row for the first time in eons? I'm not sure I'm ready to do that. What I am looking at in this game, Pete, is the total. I think we're going to see points in this game. You look at Oakland, they're averaging an impressive 400 total yards per game, 6.2 yards per play. They're capable of creating big plays offensively. Derek Carr got a lot of his weapons going last week. Amari Cooper, Jordy Nelson, the tight end Jared Cook. I think they're going to be able to make some plays against Cleveland's defense, which I don't think has been tested as much defensively as you'd like to see. On the flip side, it's going to look like Cleveland's offense has sputtered. They haven't scored more than 21 points. They're only averaging 325 total yards per game. You take those offensive stats for Cleveland, you chuck them in the garbage can because they're meaningless now. Baker Mayfield's the quarterback. With Tyrod Taylor, it was a conservative play calling type of game plan. Check down Charlie is what I like to call Tyrod Taylor. Let's keep things manageable. Cleveland's come out this week in the media saying we're going to let Baker throw the football. We're going to let him take some deep shots down the field. We're not going to handcuff this guy. We're going to let him be aggressive. And you can make plays if you're aggressive against this Oakland defense. They haven't stopped the run. There's been no pass rush. There's been holes in the secondary. They're giving up 258 yards through the air. I think Cleveland's going to score some points. Oakland's going to score some points. 44.5 is not that big of a total to get over in the NFL these days, especially with roughing the passer and 15-yard penalties happening, it seems, every 3 or 4 plays. So I'm on the over here, 44.5, Browns and Raiders.
The line has gotten bet up from opening. It opened at 44. We can give you 44.5 minus 115 at Bookmaker or 45 at plus 100 at Pinnacle. You want the 44.5?
Definitely 44.5. Key number.
All right, Ian Cameron, thanks so much. Yeah, I didn't mean to insult Bill O'Brien there. I'm not that smart either. I'm just saying neither is he.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Right. You know
Go
what
ahead.
I'm saying? I'm just saying,
right with you.
I'm not saying I'm any smarter than he is. I'm just saying.
Take those
he ain't
shots,
that smart.
Pistol Pete. Take those shots. Come on.
All right. Well, we are going to
deserving
welcome Al McMorty, currently 10-7 against the spread, 59% in our shows. Al McMorty's website is bigal.com. Al McMorty, thanks for joining us once again.
Thanks, Peter. How's it going, guys?
Oh, it's going okay. It's going okay. Tough lines. We're making adjustments like everyone else is trying to make adjustments. Market's trying to make adjustments. All right, let's start with a couple of NFL games with you, Al McMorty. Buffalo Bills against the Green Bay Packers, right? Bills coming off the big win. The big question, I guess, here is how much is Aaron Rodgers actually hurt, and how much of that is just him maybe faking it a little bit? I'm not exactly sure, but either way, I have a sense that Green Bay might be a little bit cautious with them here, a little bit conservative on offense. So when I look at this game, I'm not necessarily looking for a cover from Buffalo, but I am thinking about maybe an under, maybe a Green Bay team total under, a very high total. Obviously, this is a fascinating game. The Bills shocked Minnesota. Aaron Rodgers, is he injured? Is he not injured? What's your take on this one, Al McMorty?
Well, that Buffalo win, that was shocking. Not the fact that they won, but the fact that they won by such a large margin, and that was actually the biggest upset in the NFL in 23 years, as they won outright as a 16.5-point underdog at Minnesota. And the last team to achieve such a big upset win was Washington back in 1995 when they upset Dallas as a 17.5-point underdog. So these kinds of things don't happen very often. But what I like to do is I like to go against teams off these big upset wins. If you go back to 1980, teams off upset wins as double-digit road underdogs. They've gone 56 and 80 against a spread in their next game, including 17 and 33 ATS if they were playing back-to-back road games, which is, of course, the case here as Buffalo has to go to the road once again. Aaron Rodgers, I'm going to guess that he's going to be fine and that they won't be as conservative as you might expect. The Packers have gone 47 and 25 ATS with Aaron Rodgers as the starting quarterback, including 14 and 2 ATS versus opponents off a road win. I'm going to take Green Bay and lay the 10 points.
Lay the 10 points here. Okay. Al McMorty taking, let's line shop around here. The line has actually gotten bet down a little bit. I don't know if you caught this, Al McMorty. It's a split line now, 10 or 9.5. So we can actually give you a 9.5 minus 110. What do you make of that line movement, Al? Recency bias favoring Buffalo. People concerned about Aaron Rodgers' health. What's your take on the line move? Is that sharp action coming in on Buffalo, or is that the public piling in on Buffalo because they just got that big win?
I think it's more has to do with Aaron Rodgers than anything else. That's my gut. I don't think the public has any interest in the Buffalo Bills, notwithstanding yesterday's or last week's game.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to give Al McMorty Green Bay minus 9.5. And yeah, that's a great point about the Buffalo game last week. Al McMorty, if someone had offered you Minnesota plus 20 at minus 110 last week, how much of your net worth would you have put on that? Would you put 100% of your net worth on that? You probably would have put at least 75%, right? What would you have done if someone had literally said, I'll give you Minnesota plus 20, minus 110, you can bet as much as you want? What would your reaction have been?
Well, the interesting thing was on my free picks page. If you go to bigal.com and you click on free picks, my free pick for Sunday was Buffalo plus 16.5 against Minnesota. I like Buffalo plus the points in the game. But yeah, if you would have given me Minnesota, even money, I would have put a healthy amount on Minnesota, and then would have come back and taken Buffalo plus the 16.5 as well.
Yeah, no, but it just goes to show you these extreme examples, these extreme results are a perfect illustration of how important money management is. If someone had offered you Minnesota plus 20 at minus 110, the appropriate response would have been maybe, I don't know, put half your net worth on it. Maybe a third of your net worth, but definitely not all of it. Because anything can happen, right?
That's definitely true, and of course, no one would have offered you that. So it's a hypothetical.
But I'm saying hypothetically, right? So we're illustrating why money management is so important, and why it's so tempting to overbet edges that you might legitimately have. All right, Ian Cameron, Al McMorty taking Green Bay now at the reduced line. It opened at 10.5. He's going to get 9.5. What do you think, Ian Cameron? Is Green Bay a good bet here?
I haven't been able to work with Al a lot in the past, but I've been able to keep contact with two people from Vegas that Al's very familiar with, Dave Koken and Scott Spreitzer over the years. And I've known Al for years in terms of his style for years. It's technical and it's the database elements of handicapping. I'm telling you, there's no database or technical databases that are going to be looking at Buffalo here. You're talking about a double-digit underdog here coming back against Green Bay now, and Green Bay off a loss as a favorite on the road last week. So yeah, there's no doubt technical handicapping points to Green Bay in this game. My question here is Aaron Rodgers' health. He looked like Hop-along Cassidy, last week against Washington Capital, or against the Washington Redskins rather. He looked like he was not even close to 100%. That mobility element was not there. The question for me is Buffalo going to be able to withstand prosperity? That was a go into Minnesota, smack them in the mouth kind of win. Complete domination on both sides of the ball. Nothing fluky about what Buffalo did, but being able to withstand prosperity, go on the road, do it again against a desperate home team, I'm not so sure. There's been an adjustment with people's power ratings, because you're right, Buffalo could have been a 2-touchdown underdog prior to last week in this game against Green Bay. Now they're just catching 10. I'm not sure the value's there. I don't think I want to lay it with Green Bay either, but beware with Buffalo. That number's gone down quite a bit based on that win over Minnesota last week.
Yeah, I mean, and there has been line movement favoring Buffalo. And you talk about Aaron Rodgers' health. I was looking at the game. I'm a guy who tends to think that people are generally honest, which I know is a wrong assumption to make. People were suggesting that Aaron Rodgers was faking it a little bit. Michael Jordan used to do that. Is he hamming it up a little bit to make it seem like he's more injured than he really is? Ian?
Maybe the sympathy vote. Who knows?
Yeah.
But it's hard. I can't see Aaron Rodgers doing that, to be honest. I can't think he's just hopping along out there just to win an Oscar for trying to feign a serious injury. I think he's legitimately playing through serious pain, playing not at 100%. But we know on some weeks, just ask the Chicago Bears in week 1, even a 70 or 80% Aaron Rodgers can sometimes get the job done.
Sure. And Al McMorty, I think it's safe to assume you are not at all. You're assuming Aaron Rodgers 100%, 98%, no problem with his health in your mind, right?
Well, no, I think he's going to play, and I think he's going. I don't think they're going to be conservative. I don't think that's McCarthy's style. That doesn't mean that he's completely healthy, but as Ian just alluded to, he can play through pain and be pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Al McMorty is going to take a shot with Green Bay -9.5. We'll see where this line closes. So far, the money has come in on Buffalo. Next game, we're going to discuss another interesting game, Miami and New England. And this is yet another game where line shopping at this point in the week is of paramount importance. It is a split line, 6.5 or 7. So if Al McMorty likes the Pats here, we'll give him 6.5. If he likes Miami here, we'll give him +7. I don't know. I've been kind of down on the Pats from preseason. I did take a shot with their season win total under at 11.5. I know they're going to get some guys back and make some additions that will improve them in subsequent weeks. They're giving 6.5 or 7 points to Miami here, 3-0 straight up and against the spread. I have a sneaking suspicion that Al McMorty is going to say he likes the Pats here. Is that what you like?
That is who I like. A part of it is going against Miami. It's not really going on New England. The Dolphins have sprinted out to a 3-0 start this season. Of course, New England lagging behind with a 1-2 record. But evidence shows that teams like Miami tend to come back down to earth after doing what they just did. If you go back to 2002, there have been 15 undefeated teams with a record of 3-0 or better that have been installed as an underdog of +5 or more points. And those 15 teams have gone 1-14 straight up, 5-9-1 ATS. The Patriots also have gone 8-0 straight up and 7-1 ATS since November 2002, went off back-to-back losses. That's the situation here. And finally, home teams have cashed 37 of 54 off upset losses on the road if their opponent was off 3 straight up and against the spread victories. I'm going to take New England -6.5.
Okay, again, it is a split line. 6.5 -110 is currently available at Heritage. And yeah, I completely agree with you, Al McMorty, that Miami is in for a crash back down to earth, and I'm willing to bet on that. I'm just not sure if I want to take a shot here with the Pats laying a bunch of points in light of how down I was on the Pats to start the season, at least for their first 3 or 4 games. Ian Cameron, what do you think, Miami or New England, or is it just too many unknowns here and a pass for you?
For the side, it's very difficult for me because parts of me are seeing this ain't the same New England team. You look at the only win and cover this season. Who did it come against? Houston. Well, look at what Houston's been so far. Complete garbage. A coach that can't figure out what he's doing on a weekly basis, a bad defense, a bad offensive line, a quarterback in Watson who's lost confidence. So that's all New England's got on the ledger right now. But I know one thing's for sure, and I've been leaning Miami in this game. If I take them, they'll get pounded. I just get that sense that it's a New England spot here, that they're going to get this job done, that they're going to be able to move the ball against Miami. And another major concern I have with taking Miami now is these defensive line injuries that they're dealing with going into this game. That is a major issue. They're depleted. They don't have a lot of depth along that defensive front, and this is a game where it could show up here. Now, New England's defense has not looked good. They missed Pat Chung, I think, in the secondary, no doubt about that. Pass rush hasn't been consistent. It's like on offense, it's been double Gronkowski, force a Dorsett or one of those other receivers to beat you. Maybe Josh Gordon plays. We don't know for sure yet. Maybe he makes his Patriots debut. I think that's going to help New England's offense. And I think their defense has just been so poor that I can't help but think Tannehill, who looks comfortable in this Adam Gase offense, can do something moving the football. So my play on this game, and it will be official, I'm going to go over 47.5 here between the Dolphins and Patriots. I think we see some points.
Okay, yeah, it is William Hayes, a big loss for Miami on defense. Absolutely. Opened at 48. It's again a split line. Line shopping is so important. I'm line shopping here live on camera at SBRodds.com. If you want the over, Ian Cameron, we can give you 47.5 minus 110. There are a lot of places that also have 48. So Ian Cameron's going to take the Pats game over 47.5 minus 110 as an official pick. Al McMorty going on the Pats minus 6.5, and maybe the Pats team total over, if you combine both of those picks, might be a better play and even a safer play. All right, Al McMorty, before we move on, do you also lean over here, or no opinion on the total?
No opinion on the total.
Okay. So now let's move on to the next game we're going to cover with Al McMorty. Another interesting one. They're pretty much all interesting, but this is, again, particularly interesting. Michigan as a 2-touchdown favorite against Northwestern. And, of course, Northwestern is they lost their running back, Jeremy Larkin. He was really the engine that made their relatively, uninspiring offense go. Now he's gone. The backup who's going to be replacing him does not have good numbers overall. Michigan blasted Nebraska last week. I'm looking at this game, probably leaning Michigan, probably leaning under, and probably leaning Northwestern team total under. That's how I would look at this game right now. What's your take on this one, Al McMorty?
Oh, my alma mater, the Michigan Wolverines. I actually went to school there for 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's I tell you, the Wolverines have not been very good as a road team. Of course, their two big blowouts that they come off of were both at home. The last time we saw the Wolverines on the road was at Notre Dame, and they didn't look very good in that opener. They're now 8-19 straight up and 9-18 against the spread on the road versus Big Ten opponents with a 333 or better win percentage. That's the situation here. So that certainly doesn't bode well for Jim Harbaugh's men. I'm not going to be surprised if Northwestern actually pulls the outright upset in this ball game. And for additional technical support, consider that home underdogs like Northwestern, those teams are 62-31 ATS in conference games off back-to-back home defeats. This is Northwestern's third straight home game. I like Northwestern to stun the Wolverines.
Wow, so Al McMorty would not be surprised if Northwestern gets the outright win. Trust me when I tell you, Al McMorty, there's a lot of people who would be surprised if that happens. Ian Cameron, would you be surprised if Northwestern gets the outright win here?
I'd be mildly surprised if they won, but would it be a shock to see them hang within 14 points? Absolutely not. This is Pat Fitzgerald's point spread roll with this Northwestern football team. They have been phenomenal underdogs, even better double-digit underdogs in his tenure. This is the point spread role you want to back Northwestern in, plain and simple. And you're right, Michigan's going on the road. They haven't been a great road team. Look at what happened against Notre Dame week 1, albeit very good team. But again, at home, Western Michigan, SMU, Nebraska with a hobbled Martinez at quarterback. Like, that's not really a big-time resume of big-time performances against, a couple of weak entries and a Nebraska team rebuilding under Scott Frost with a quarterback that clearly wasn't 100% in that football game. So Michigan's got to go out. I like their offense. Getting the running back returning last week was big, gives them another element to that offense. But you got to cover 14 points on the road. I'm kind of with Al here. I'll go with Northwestern here, plus 14. I love Pat Fitzgerald catching double digits like he is here, so I'll make that one official.
All right, but Ian Cameron, I was actually, regular viewers of the Low Bag Show know that I was leaning Northwestern when this line opened, but I wasn't aware of Larkin being out, and now I'm just thinking, where's the offense going to come from? That's my question, Ian Cameron. Or do you think it's going to be a 10-0 game, and that's how Northwestern covers?
Yeah, the offense is a concern for Northwestern in this game. They're going to have to get a good performance from the quarterback spot from Thorson, no question. Jeremy Larkin's a huge loss. You don't replace a running back with that productivity very easily. But what Northwestern, I think, can do is rely on that defense. I still think it's a pretty good unit there. Force Michigan to have to put the ball in the end zone. They're going to have to score touchdowns, Michigan, to win this football game. Their red zone efficiency last year was terrible. especially on the road. I know they got a better quarterback. They should, in theory, have a better offense now, but it wasn't good against Notre Dame either in week 1 on the road. They need to have red zone proficiency to cover a number like this on the road. They haven't shown it last year. They didn't show it against Notre Dame. And until I see it, I'm worried that they can't cover this kind of number.
All right, so Ian Cameron and Al McMorty are both going to take Northwestern. This line opened at 11. It's now gotten bet way up. And, of course, we do use up to the second lines, which is good for anyone who likes Northwestern because it's up to 14 and 14.5. It's actually a split line. The Greek, Intertops, UWager, BetMania, BetPhoenix, lots of places are already at 14.5. So we will give both Ian Cameron and Al McMorty plus 14.5, minus 110. And I'll make an official pick on this one as well, not on the side. I'm going to take the under. I'm going to take the under. Pinnacle right now has 48 minus 121. Other places have 47, 46.5. Bookmaker already down to 46. I'm going to take the under on this one, 48 minus 121. I'll make that one an official pick for myself. Now let's move on to Florida and Mississippi State. Next game we're going to cover with Al McMorty. Another interesting one that I thought I liked the side on the opening line, and the line has moved in my favor. Now I'm questioning it a little bit more and more as I look deeper into it. I took Mississippi State at minus 7. Obviously, this is a huge game with Mullen, coming back to Mississippi State. I took Mississippi State minus 7. Florida, of course, coming off the huge win against Tennessee, and Mississippi State got blasted by Kentucky. Al McMorty gave us last week Kentucky plus the points, and that was obviously very much the right side. I thought this was a bounce back spot for Mississippi State. I took them at plus 7. Now it's up to 7.5 or 8. But now I'm not sure how I feel about this one. Both these teams, of course, played Kentucky, and I do think that Florida's performance against Kentucky was the quote-unquote better performance. Al McMorty, what do you like here? Florida, Mississippi State.
Oh, I'm with you on the Bulldogs. As you mentioned, last week I had a big play on Kentucky as the double-digit underdog. The key to this game, I think, is the magnitude of those games last week. Florida won 47-21 as a 4.5-point favorite at Tennessee, so they covered the spread by 21.5 points. In contrast, Mississippi State was upset 28-7 as a double-digit favorite, so they failed to cover the spread by 31 points. And when you get teams off an upset conference loss by 18 or more points, those teams have covered just 24 of 78 conference games since 1980 versus opponents up a straight up and against a spread win. I think both teams are going to kind of have the opposite effect of last week's results. I think Florida's going to have a letdown. I think Mississippi State's going to bounce back. I'm going to take the Bulldogs minus the 7.5.
And what about the Mullen factor? Everyone's talking about how Mullen knows the Mississippi State players better than anyone. And Fitzgerald has not looked like a superhero so far. He looks like a guy with some limitations as a quarterback. What's your take on Fitzgerald, if any, and what's your take on the Mullen factor, if any?
Well, I think whenever people talk about the stuff about coaches knowing things or whatever, I think a lot of times that's just a bunch of noise. Right. I think writers have to write about things, and that's something you write about.
Yeah, that's what I do. I have to fill up the time somehow with something. So if I have to, rely on bullshit once in a while, I'm going to do it. You know what I'm saying? Ian Cameron, I took Mississippi State on the opening line at 7.5. At 7. I did also give that as an official pick in the Loshak in the Bag show early in the week. Now there are no 7s available at the major books. Al McMorty's going to have to take 7.5 minus 104, which is the current line at Pinnacle. What do you think, Ian Cameron? Is Mississippi State the play here?
Yeah, I think the coaches facing their old teams is just like a meaningless talking point. I agree with that. Like the New England offense knew Matt Patricia's defensive schemes going into last week against Detroit. Did it help them? No. I mean, they had one of their worst offensive performances in a long time against that Detroit defense last week. So from that standpoint, I think it's all overrated. I look at the matchups. I look at the stats. I look at the situation, the schedule, how it lays out when I'm looking at the game. I really don't look at a coach going back to his old stomping grounds. But I'm with Al here in this one too. On Mississippi State. Look, Florida, I cashed with them against Colorado State a couple weeks ago. I'll take it. But you look at these last two games for Florida. Everyone's going to look at the score. 95-31 combined score. They beat Colorado State and Tennessee in the last two games. They only won those games yardage-wise by a combined 46 total yards. It was a bunch of turnovers. It was a bunch of short fields. It was a bunch of mistakes by the opponents that gave Florida those opportunities. I mean, they beat a horrible Colorado State team with no defense. All four of us could move the ball against that Colorado State team. Tennessee last week, he got guys leaving the field, leaving the game right in the middle of the game, and coach sending guys to the back. I mean, that's how bad Tennessee's season has started. So you can't make too much of what Florida's done. And Florida, yardage-wise, barely did enough to get by those teams, even though the score indicates they blew those two teams out. So Felipe Franks isn't doing it for me. Barely 50% of his passes. The defense has struggled to get stops. I know Nick Fitzgerald's had an uncharacteristic poor performance so far. His completion rate needs to be better. The ground game needs to get better for the Bulldogs. But I think after a humbling loss to Kentucky, I think this Kentucky team, we're starting to find out it's a little better than people thought. I think Mississippi State can come back, get the job done. I think they can win this game by double digits. So I'm going to lay the points here and make that official as well on the Bulldogs.
Okay, so Ian Cameron will also take Mississippi State -7.5, -104. And again, I made an official pick as well on Monday when there's still sevens available. And so I'm on that one as well. And I guess I'm feeling a little bit better about it right now. Both Al McMorty and Ian Cameron, they're going to take Mississippi State -7.5, -104. The last game we're going to cover with you, Al McMorty, Stanford, Notre Dame. Huge game this week. Obviously, the early money has come in on Notre Dame in the Loshak in the Bag show. A lot of commenters are suggesting that the Pac-12 in general is overrated and overvalued in games outside of their conferences. And Notre Dame's gotten bet up from 3.5 to 5.5, 6 at Bet365. Great performance by the new quarterback for Notre Dame last week. What do you like here, Al McMorty? Is Stanford getting too many points here, 5.5 or even 6?
I think the number's right. I do like the situation, though, for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, especially after last week's Cardinal game where they snatched victory from the jaws of defeat. I didn't have the game, but I know a lot of people who did. One of my best friends had a huge play on Oregon, and he's still talking about that collapse where, they could have downed the ball and they decided to run the ball and then they fumble and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So Stanford is somewhat lucky to be 4-0 here, but one of the things I like to do is go against teams that are 4-0 because in Game 5, when these teams are underdogs, priced from +3.5 to +15.5 points, they're awful. They cover just 34 of 94 games going back to 1980. So this is the time where those undefeated teams tend to fall by the wayside. I think Stanford's going to get its comeuppance in South Bend. Another thing is that, it's a momentum play for me. Notre Dame got 56 points last week. And one of the things I like to do is play on home teams in non-conference games off a straight up and ATS win in which it scored 50 or more points. And especially if our home team is not favored by a lot of points here, of course, you're favored by under a touchdown. But if our team generally isn't favored by more than 14 points in that situation, those teams have covered 64.1% of the time. So I think it's a good spot to take Notre Dame off that offensive explosion last week. I also think it's a good spot to go against Stanford as an undefeated team catching points at 4-0 on the season.
All right, the line has gotten bet up 3.5 to 5.5. We'll give Al McMorty -5.5, -110. Ian Cameron, you agree? Notre Dame the play here?
One of the great shows I watched as a kid was LeVar Burton reading Rainbow, and one of the songs in the lines in the theme song was "Take a look, it's in a book." Well, for Notre Dame, that's the line for rediscovering their offense and quarterback play. Ian Book last week for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. He was terrific. And it clearly showed what Brian Kelly knew he was doing, replacing Brandon Wimbush. Not an easy decision to make. Definitely. Brandon Wimbush has started a lot of games for this program. To go with Ian Book was a gutsy call, and boy, did it pay off. He looked in total control, 300 yards passing, a couple of touchdowns. That's just total control against that Wake Forest defense. And Brian Kelly's not saying much about his quarterback situation, but Ian Book's going to be back in there at the quarterback spot after the way he played last week. I think he's going to move the ball very well here in this game, but I also think Stanford's going to move the ball. I definitely think Notre Dame's probably situationally in a better situation here, but I'm going to look at the total. Stanford overs were something I was looking at coming into the season. Really didn't pay off for me finally until last week against Oregon. I think they're going to have trouble here with Book and the Notre Dame offense, but I think Stanford with Costello, who's a thrower, can make plays deep downfield to Arcega-Whiteside and some of these receivers. Bryce Love in the backfield. They're going to be able to make plays with that balanced offense against Notre Dame defensively here in this game as well. So I'm going to look at the total. I got 53.5 to go over Stanford Notre Dame earlier this week. I'll still take whatever best numbers out there right now over the total Stanford Notre Dame. Make that one official.
All right, it's headed up a little bit, but the Greek does still have 53.5, so we can give you that one. Stanford Notre Dame over 53.5. -110. So once again, Al McMorty's plays: Green Bay -9.5, Pats -6.5, Northwestern +14.5, Mississippi State -7.5, Notre Dame -5.5. Thanks so much, Al McMorty. Tell us about your website, BigAl.com.
Well, folks can go to bigowl.com. I've been in business now, seems like 26, 27 years. It's been a long time. Off to a good start this year on our top plays. This week we're having our first 5-star play of the entire football season. It'll go on Saturday. It'll be my 5-star college football conference game of the year. Just go to bigowl.com. You can click on picks for sale. Should be posted by Wednesday night. And if people want to join for long term, you can click on subscriptions. There are 15 handicappers at the website. You can get winners not just from myself, but from 14 other handicappers. And we also have 4 free plays every day, 2 free plays for myself, 1 free play from Larry Ness, and another free play from Power Sports. Just go to bigowl.com and click on free picks.
All right. And Ian Cameron killing it in this show so far. Thanks so much, Ian Cameron. He is on West Virginia -3.5. Cleveland, Oakland over 44 or 44.5. Pats game over 47.5. Northwestern +14.5. Mississippi State -7.5. And Notre Dame over 53.5. And the other game you wanted to get to, Ian Cameron, Virginia against NC State. I know you have a pick on that one. 4-0 ATS for Virginia. What do you like here, Ian?
I'm going to keep riding Virginia until I see them not cover a number. I mean, this is a team that surprised me this season. They've been terrific. I think you can get +6 was the most recent number I found. Virginia's offense, Bryce Perkins, has been very solid. 65% completions, 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. 4-0 ATS, undervalued commodity. I think maybe the better defense here in this game Virginia has. NC State lost a lot on defense from last year. Of course, Bradley Chubb among everybody that they lost from that defense last year. And I think it shows up in this game. I think NC State will have trouble winning this game, let alone winning by margin. I've also been riding NC State games over the total, so I'm going to give out a side and total as official plays in this game. Virginia +6, over 53. Those were the numbers I got. Pete, you can check what they are now, but I like Virginia in the over in that game.
Yes, of course, this line opened at 8. It's gotten bet way down, 5, 5.5, but the Greek does still have 6, so we can give you that, 6 -110. And as far as the over, that line has also gotten bet up, opened at 53. The best line we can give you right now would be at BetOnline, 54 -120. Is that okay for you, Ian Cameron?
That's fine.
54 -120 it is. And that does it for the Pre-Snap Reads Show, NFL Week 4, College Football Week 5. Al McMorty and Ian Cameron, thanks so much. Talk to you again very soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Good luck. Good luck to you, too.